Here's a question worth sitting with. Does the truth always prevail, or do sins stay hidden forever if buried deep enough in the dark? This Japanese folktale is known as Mamako to Fue, the stepchild and the bamboo flute. There was a girl living with her father and stepmother in a small village. Her father worked hard, traveling to Kyoto to trade and bring back what he could. The stepmother worked just as hard at something else, finding reasons to hate the girl. She favored her own child, and for the stepdaughter, she reserved the coldest tasks and the sharpest words. Her father was preparing to leave for Kyoto when he spoke gently to the girl. "I'll bring you a comb," he said, "and a sewing box as a souvenir." He said it as a promise, a simple way of saying that he would remember her while he was gone. Then he left. The day he disappeared down the road, the stepmother began in earnest. She ordered the girl to draw water with a bamboo basket, knowing the water would spill through the gaps. She told her to heat bath water using stones, knowing the stones would never burn. The girl obeyed, because disobedience only made things worse. She worked until her hands were raw, blinking back tears. One evening, when she could no longer hold the tears, she slipped behind the house and wept. There, in the dim light under the bamboo, a figure in a white robe appeared. A priest, or something close to it. He said nothing at first, then he gave her the sleeve of his robe and a little oil. With these, she managed to warm the bath properly. When the stepmother discovered that the impossible task had been completed, her anger did not soften. It sharpened. A girl who copes with cruelty can provoke even more of it. So the stepmother made a decision. On a late autumn day, she wove a ladder from thin vines and stretched it over a tub full of boiling water. Then she called the girl and pointed to the fragile rungs. "If you want to meet your father," she said, "walk across this ladder." The girl hesitated. Then she stepped forward. The vines sagged beneath her weight. Halfway across, they gave way. She fell into the scalding water. There was no second chance. That night, the stepmother buried the girl at the edge of the yard and planted a bamboo shoot over the grave, taken from the mountain, as if to mask what lay beneath. By morning, the ground looked ordinary. In a few months, the bamboo was tall, green and straight, no sign of what had fed its roots. One day, a shakuhachi player passed through the village. He was a traveling musician, the kind who listened to wood before he listened to coins. When he saw the bamboo in the yard, he stopped. "This stalk is extraordinary," he said to the stepmother. "I'd like to buy it and make a shakuhachi from it." She agreed, but added one condition. He must never play the flute facing Kyoto, where her husband was staying. She repeated this demand until he gave his word. He took the bamboo, carved the instrument, and went on his way. It is hard to keep a promise you do not understand. At some point on the road, curiosity crossed the line into action. The musician turned towards Kyoto, lifted the shakuhachi, and played. The notes rose clear and pure, and under them, woven into the sound, came words. "I don't need a comb and a sewing box." He lowered the flute. Then he played again, the same phrase. Every time he played, the same voice, the same words. Weeks later, the father returned from Kyoto, carrying the promised gifts. He expected to see his daughter's face brighten at the sight of the comb and sewing box, but instead, he found the house unnaturally quiet. "Where is she?" he asked. The stepmother told him the girl had gone to the mountains for firewood and had never come back. The answer was rehearsed. The tone was steady. But before he could press further, the shakuhachi player arrived at the door and began to play. The sound of the flute filled the yard. Then the words emerged again, as if pulled from the air itself. "I don't need a comb and a sewing box." The father stood very still. Kyoto, the gifts in his hands, the promise he had made, and the words carried on the music all aligned at once. He walked to the corner of the yard where the bamboo had grown, took up a spade, and began to dig. He did not need to dig far. Beneath the thin layer of soil lay his daughter's bones. He turned back to the house. The stepmother's story fell apart. In the face of the truth, a bamboo stalk, a flute, and a voice that refused to disappear, she confessed. The tale stops there. It does not tell us what the father did next, but it leaves us with something else. This tale belongs to the old Japanese tradition of mukashi banashi, stories passed from mouth to mouth in farming villages, mountain settlements, and around family hearths. It is recorded as hailing from Nara Prefecture, but versions of it are found across rural Japan under different names. Folklorists group stories like this under an international pattern called the singing bone, in which the bones or grave of a murdered person produce a musical instrument that reveals the truth of their death. At the center of this story is a child who does everything asked of her. She endures impossible tasks, yet keeps her hope fixed on her father's simple promise, a comb and a sewing box from his journey. The story is hard on the stepmother, but it does more than single out one villain. It insists that harm done in the closed space of a family does not stay closed. The attempt to hide the girl beneath earth and bamboo fails. The bamboo is cut, carved, and carried away, and yet it keeps its memory. Breath passes through it and turns into testimony. What was meant to cover the crime becomes the instrument that reveals it. The father too is caught in that revelation. His journey creates the gap in which everything happens. The flute's voice forces him to see that distance, but it shows the outcome and lets the listener sit with it. Folk tales like this are not comforting in a simple way. They do not promise that every injustice will be righted or that every victim will be restored. What they suggest instead is that truth has weight. And that is the sting of the story. Even when a voice is silenced, the world around it may still carry what it tried to say. It is a reminder that what we bury does not always stay buried, and that sometimes the stories we tell about others, true or otherwise, are eventually told back to us through channels we never expected and in words we cannot ignore. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.